Welcome back, wadau des, mabibi na mabwana, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Justice Obscured. I have a very interesting episode today. Today we finally get to talk about what sexual violence is.
Yeah.
I have a guest here, and to give a background of how we came up with this, April is Sexual Awareness Month.
Oh, nice.
And when it comes around, there's really so many questions around how sexual assault is still a thing. Why
Yes.
is it so prevalent?
Mm-hmm.
And statistics show up. And so it opens up wounds for people over and
Def.
over again. Every time April comes around, so
Okay.
do the social media campaigns and everything comes around.
Definitely.
And so I decided to have an episode where we talk about sexual awareness and especially sexual violence, and talk about it in different aspects because I felt like the whole society is responsible for this because we can't
True.
just keep blaming men.
True.
We can't just keep blaming and saying, "Oh, predators," because that's something I kept seeing on social media. It became women are angry with men,
Okay.
and men in return also saying, "But we also get sexually assaulted.
Assaulted.
It's just that ours is silent." And then women would come back and say, "Who assaults you? It's your fellow men." And men have created systems. And
Yes.
then it
Yes.
becomes a back
Definitely.
and forth. So
Definitely.
I felt like that wasn't a very productive way to go about it. I felt
Okay.
like it stems from society.
Society.
The roots of it is each part of our
The
society
moral
has
fabric.
failed. Yes.
Yes.
So our justice systems have failed. Our churches or our religious systems have failed.
True.
We as individuals, our families have failed. Every single structure that's supposed to help hold up the moral fabric has failed.
True.
And so the fruit of it is what we are seeing currently.
True.
I haven't even introduced my guest.
Oh man.
Tushaanza
Sawa,
episode.
sawa.
Tusharuka ndani. Please introduce yourself and tell us
Oh,
why
nice,
you're here on the
nice,
great
nice,
couch.
nice. But I'm not a new face in
Yeah,
this
you're
in
not.
this podcast
You're
show.
not.
Sindio? Yeah. So hi guys. I go by the name Spencer Wanambisi Waluhu, or you can call me Spencer, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. What else? I'm also a podcaster. I run a podcast though Saiko chini ya waba. Yeah, and I'm also a human rights enthusiast. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So he's perfectly fitted for this episode.
Definitely.
So let's talk about it. Let's just jump right into it because
Okay.
a huge part of what we don't understand is that we don't understand the law.
Okay.
And how far does the law protect us?
Actually, the law is very clear.
It is clear. And I think that's what we need to know. So we need to know the law first, and then now we see the breakdown between the law and what is being implemented.
Nice.
So tell us, what does the Kenyan law define as sexual assault, rape, defilement, all these words we hear? How does it define it?
I don't know how to picture it, but let me just say all these clusters, rape, defilement, you can talk of any other form of sexual assault, they are all classified under an act of parliament. An act of parliament is an instrument of laws which has been classified under the constitution that contains rights, principles and regulations on how you should conduct and on how you should abhor certain kinds of offenses. Now, in this case, where we have sexual acts, assaults, rape, indecent acts, you can call them defilement. They're all classified under an act of parliament called the Sexual Offences Act. So when you look at something like rape, an act like rape, when you look at that act now, the Sexual Offences Act defines rape as an act of which is unintentional. Not necessarily. Intentional or the unlawful penetration or other sexual intercourse with someone without their consent.
Okay.
Yes. So the element of consent
is key.
Yes, intention and unlawful.
And it has to be penetration.
Yes, it has to be penetration. So
for it to be classified.
Yes, I cannot slap in and classify as rape. We're
talking about sexual
yes,
violences,
yes,
right?
definitely.
So if somebody uses oral sex,
all right,
forcefully uses oral sex, they have not penetrated.
Yeah, there is. That's just an indecent act.
It's classified as under indecent acts. So
yes.
the law protects.
Yes, we need to have the sexual organs of the man, a woman. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Tuko class, take notes.
Yeah.
Leo tunaongea.
But I'll try and break it down in the best way possible.
Yeah. So what are some of the legal nuances that the public misunderstands concerning these laws around sexual offenses?
That wow, there are a lot. There are a lot, yo.
Give us top 5. Five when
No, no,
unasikia
no.
the most.
I'll try to just narrow them into some few, a couple.
Yeah.
Like silence amounts to consent.
Hey, Ebuko, say it again and look at the camera.
Like silence amounts to consent.
Just
you know,
because she didn't say
no,
no doesn't mean it's a yes.
Like I touched her and she was like, hakusema anything, so it was consent. No, not necessarily.
Bosi, tutakufunga.
Tutalala ndani.
Tutalala ndani, boss. In the worst way.
Yes. Then another thing is like men cannot be raped. All right.
That's something. Okay, let me say this. That's something I struggle to envision.
All right.
And I think it's because I'm in a woman's body.
Okay.
It's hard for me to understand how the male anatomy works.
Okay.
Right? So for me, an integral part of sexual behavior with men has to have arousal.
Yes.
And arousal means, like, in my head, arousal means like a mental stimulation, a positive mental stimulation.
Yes.
So when I think of men being raped, I'm like, okay, so you had a positive mental stimulation, but still didn't want it.
Yes, it could be positive mental stimulation, but what really triggered the stimulation? It might be alcohol, it might be drugs, it might be, for lack of a better word, capacity, or rather the immaturity. Maybe somebody, this is a boy, this is a teenager who is really trying to identify himself within the brackets of puberty. All right, still an underage. All right. So in amidst everything, then when he just gets excited, or rather in the midst of the course of everything, then you see now you have exploited whatever is really learning from his body.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that also works.
I empathize now. There's a lack of empathy. There's a lack
boys
of empathy.
Also matter. Yes.
So let's talk about sexual assault survivors in their very complex journey.
Okay.
So if somebody experiences sexual violence,
okay,
and they come and they report it, you're a lawyer, they come to you first, maybe, and they tell you this is what has happened. I don't know how to go about it. What are some of the steps that you can tell us? What are the legal steps that you would take them through?
First of all, it always begins from where the act happened and the society as well.
That's
so it does not begin with, in fact, with the advocate, or rather the hospital or anything. Because first of all, you need to, if somebody has been assaulted, let's for an example, rape, right? We need to look at the settings. If it happened on the bed, right? Okay, or in an office or elsewhere, whichever the place, make sure you have safeguarded the place for evidence reasons. All right. Like, yes, your clothes were tampered, the sheets were, were soiled in blood, or you get the point. You need to protect that thing. So the problem that happens, somebody just with their own bare hands goes and tampers with the evidence. They grab the sheets and like, you see this happened, and already that's tampering because you have placed your fingerprints on them. So when it comes to forensic analysis,
they see your fingerprints.
They see your fingerprints. So try to protect and safeguard the scene of, let me just call it the crime scene.
The crime scene.
The crime scene. Safeguard it. If it is the clothes of the victim, make sure you've kept them in a proper package which will be used for forensic analysis and as evidence reasons, right? Then from there, we now approach to the next step. What else? You report it. And this now always comes to this is where the problem checks in. Because where do you report? You see, the problem is people report it to the pastor because they are too much religious. People report it to the sheikh because they believe, since my parents are Muslims, they will fear the sheikh. People report it to back then we used to have this, what do you call it? Kangaroo courts. The kangaroo courts. Zile za mtaa, zile za kuku nini, so kuna ule mzee, the village elder. Someone will report it there. But the proper channel for you to do is to report it to the police. If not the police, and this is a victim who has been assaulted, right? Then try to look for any NGOs. Nowadays we have very many NGOs that deals with sexual GBV, gender-based violence, right? So you report it there. So once you report it there, then they will take the initial step to direct you. Then you taken to the police, you fill your P3 from the P3, but make sure even before you reach the P3, you have undergone medical analysis where they will take samples, reports of everything, like, screening and what have you. Yes. Then from there is where now it's brought. So already we have proper facts, proper closure. Then another thing is protecting the victim. The problem is the victim, yes, goes to report, then goes back to the house, the same house,
Yes.
or rather goes back to the same society where the boys assaulted him from the same village.
So, what about if the victim is a child? So, I think everything that you're explaining to me, these legal proceedings are for people who are grown. Like somebody like me, if I'm assaulted,
Yes.
I would know
Yes.
where to go. I would
Yes.
know a lawyer. But what
Yes.
if I'm a minor?
All
What
right.
happens for a minor? Where do they go? What do they do?
Like you see now, when you have minors, these are people who are really, let me just call them underage,
Yeah.
right? Less than 18 years, all right? But the proper channel for them to do is to use guardians and people who they, I don't know how to put it, people who they can watu ambao wamewazoea, for like, let me just put it there, people they feel like I can trust
This person,
Mama
yeah.
Njambi with this. I can
Yes.
trust Baba Otie,
So it
Otis
doesn't
with
have
this.
to be necessarily their parent.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Because probably it's the parent
Parent
that
who has done it,
who has
yeah.
done it. All right? Or maybe the class teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, because me, I've faced like 2 cases where now it's the class teacher who is now reporting the parents.
Wow.
To the extent until now the class teacher says, now today don't go at home. You'll now stay
You'll
with
stay
me.
with me.
You stay
But
with me.
is that legal?
It is not legal because we can't know about the level, but probably the minor feels he or she is in safe hands with the teacher, right? Yeah.
But
So
can the parents sue if the teacher keeps their child?
on what grounds? No, the teacher will not want to keep. The teacher will have to report it to the police
before
station and tell them,
stay with
like,
the
you see,
child.
I'm with the child right now.
Okay.
Then the police will already have gotten the consent that, yeah, this person has the child as we are speaking. So the
Yes.
child is under the custody of the
This
police.
person,
So
yeah. Okay. Okay, that makes more sense. So, you talked about the kind of evidence that is required. So it's like your clothes, medical. What about for boys? I think for women, we know what is needed. Okay, we might know. You can talk to us about what is needed for women when we go to the medical. What do they usually get? What about for a man who has been raped by a woman?
for a man who has been raped by a woman, it's quite difficult to raise the evidence. However, there's something we call circumstantial evidence.
Like,
Circumstantial evidence, these are circumstances that led to the act to happen. All right? Like, okay, from here, where were you taken? I was taken in a pub. What were you offered? I was offered drink A, B, and C. Were they alcoholic? Yes,
Yes.
they were. Okay, from there, where did you? She paid for the cab. So at this time, did you try to tell her that you speak to your parents? Yeah, I tried to tell her, but at that point, I was forced this drink on this. So what happened? I woke up and found myself already stimulated. In that act, I was like this and this. All right. Somebody placed Viagra in my drink. I'm a teenager. I don't know. I'm yet to take control of my emotions or anything.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to learn how my body responds to the environment. So in that place, we were with her. We are in a room. So circumstances will tell you, like, so you guys came from a pub. You took a cab. She denied you reaching your parents. You find yourself in a paid room. Those are circumstances that can prove indeed this is an act of rape.
Yeah.
Yes, those themselves, they're enough to depict. Yeah, because it will be difficult, you see, now for a man to claim abrasions.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Because already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone was stimulated, so
Yeah,
it's difficult.
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about what the system fails. I think it's no news that our system fails.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely.
So what are some of the common failures or delays that our system has for survivors?
Wow. One, it is the existing backlog of cases. Backlog of backlog. Hey, my ancestors. Thank
They
God.
have come. Nafujo.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, backlog of cases.
Yes.
Backlog of cases, you mean like we have cases that have piled in court, right? So when a matter is being brought for rape, it will be given a future date. Yet you look at the urgency that it deserves.
Yes. Because
Like you see, I cannot keep the evidence of blood-soaked loins
Yes.
and what have you for a period of 3 months, or rather a month before the matter is brought to court. So the existence of too much cases in court that will delay or rather drag these matters being brought to the urgency that it deserves. That is the problem. Another
and
problem.
why does it take so long in court? Do we have a minority of magistrates? What is the problem in the court systems?
Look, we have a population of around 50 million people. The numbers of magistrates you can check is, in fact, barely 100,000. right? So you can look at the ratio
and these
of what
100,000
we are working
are
with.
split within high densely populated areas. Of course, them
Yes,
they have more.
yes,
Like Nairobi, I'm
yes,
sure
yes,
has.
yes. Though I can say the government is really trying. It's I've seen it trying to hire, magistrates and judges and what have you. Then another thing, it is also educating these people, educating the judges, the magistrates, and the police officers on how to handle rape cases. You see, even when you go like, okay, an act has happened, an act of rape or rather defilement, then how do you report it?
Yeah.
You report to a police officer tries to create some humor out of it.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a whole other
that's
that's
a
a
whole
whole other episode. We'll
yo,
talk about that. That's a whole
yeah,
other
yeah.
episode. We're gonna have somebody coming in to talk about
Definitely.
that side.
Yes, they have put those one-stop GBV report desks, but are they really
They're always
effective,
empty.
or they're just ceremonial?
They're just for picture,
Picture too.
which is so unfortunate.
Very
Do you
unfortunate.
think it would help if we had magistrates or court systems specifically for sexual matters? Sexual abuse?
Yes, that will definitely expedite the matters, and it
Yes.
will give it the seriousness that it deserves. Like we just have a magistrate who is
Handling
seriously
only.
delving into sexual offenses matters
Only.
exclusively.
Yes.
Yes, acts of rape, acts of everything, and this will give them the speciality that it deserves.
Yes.
It will give them the ample time to focus on matters of pertaining sexual offenses. So yeah, definitely it will really serve us better.
Something I've thought about for a while.
Yeah.
Yes.
Si ufanye maneno.
Nifanye maneno.
Serikali tafadhali.
Hello?
Hello.
Talk to me nicely. Niko na business plan aje.
Yeah. Then another thing, sorry.
Okay.
Then another thing, I think it is the perception of still people haven't really fully embraced that men can also be raped.
That's my next question.
Yes.
So part of rape culture is beliefs and systems or attitudes towards these sexual violences that promotes the sexual violences to happen.
Yes.
So my question is, how does rape culture show up in the legal system? We just talked about the police finding humor in assault cases or finding humor in rape cases. For a boy to be raped, they find it funny. They're like, uko sure huku nini?
Uko sure ni wewe tu ama ni wewe ndio ulikuwa umemzimia,
wewe ndio ulikuwa unataka alafu unajaribu kujifanya hapo such kind of things. So how does rape culture show up in the legal system?
It's so sad because one, I think it's that mentality like a man cannot be raped by the police officers. Then when you go to court, then you see, you always find this false where just somebody asks the question like, what were you wearing?
Yeah.
Like
that happens in court.
You could find, you see, even lawyers, they are professionals, all right? But you'll just find somebody, probably because of their personal perceptions, they'll find themselves raising those kind of questions.
Yeah.
Passively. Like,
what were you doing?
Like, so you went there, okay, where were you? Ulikuwa umetoka kuoga, ulikuwa na towel. What does having a towel, what does having my night dress have to do with you assaulting me? All right?
Yeah.
An assault is an assault, regardless of what you're putting on, right? Even commercial sex workers, they are also defiled.
Yes.
I mean, they're also raped.
Do they bring up those cases?
Now, that's also another perception. Like you see now, for them, it's another side of the story because there's this public perception that believes that because you are into commercial sex, all right?
Then you have no consent.
Then you definitely... you are just caught up within it was a bad day at work,
which is so unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
Let's talk about commercial sex work. Is it legal?
Nowadays has been classified as I can't say, the law is very silent on it, but impliedly it seems they have started to accept it within the norm. All right, like it is because this is somebody who was now out of consent, has classified themselves like, if you give me, there's an exchange to it, we can definitely land on an agreement. An agreement is already consent. So it is allowed. They believe because they have their own freedom, their choice of women and male, because they also have male commercial sex workers.
Yes. So I recently found out there's a brothel in our town. I was shocked. We have brothels.
Yes, there are many.
I didn't know this.
There are many in town.
No, in town I knew, but I was like, now it's...
in fact, even
there's high-class brothels.
We have classified brothels, and then we have something called hotspots. That's what the people from the commercial sex space call it.
Which is
Hotspots. These are
places where you just find them.
yes, we have hotspots.
Yeah,
Like in fact,
like for the longest time, there's always
they have
been
a circle
paradise.
to it. All right, which I advocate for because it really help them to to
And
sort
also,
their issues.
yeah, it also helps with accountability.
Yes,
Like if people will notice when somebody's missing.
somebody's missing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about survivors' rights.
All right.
What protections are there for survivors on paper and in real life? Because I think in this country there's that issue, there's that discrepancy.
Yeah, definitely.
So do survivors have protections?
Let me just say yes, they have. Like you see now, it is their right to privacy. We have their right to privacy. That's why when matters come before court and it's sexual offenses and maybe it's coming up for hearing, and other people are in the court, they should tell you guys check out, clear the court.
That's good.
Yeah. So yeah, they are just to give them privacy and what have you. Even they are being brought on private, private desks,
Okay.
where you cannot see them. Even their voices are distorted so that you are not able to classify
who it is.
Who it is.
You can't
All right.
recognize the
Yes,
voice.
yes. So that works as well.
Mm-hmm.
We have the witness protection, but now the witness protection, it is very Cinderella like on paper. Like ukisoma unasikia man, now this is giving us a USA kind of thing, where like the witness is protected, he lives under a room in Lekilelesho or something. Yeah. But the problem is kwa grao.
Yes,
reality, because you find that the survivor ends up going back to the same society that really assaulted him.
Yeah.
So you don't have any platform where at least you can be given a place where you can heal mentally psychologically from.
So
yes,
if a child reports their father,
okay,
that evening, yes, they go back to the same father's house.
That is the problem that you're having, because you will find a police officer saying, "Hey, sasa mimi siwezi kuleta kwangu, mimi naishi kwa." Yes. When you find it's the class, I'll have to ask my husband if he can allow. Then when the husband declines, what next? Or when the wife declines, what next?
Oh. And what about now cases where it's
that's why the NGOs come in. That's where the NGOs come in.
Yeah.
Yes.
The NGOs would be really helpful because they have have settlements.
Yes, definitely.
So what happens for high profile cases where, for example, a police officer assaults me? What happens then?
Kizungumkuti. But now what happens? Of course, the government, I've seen the government trying to raise oversight authorities, or rather independent institutions, which does the oversight of the conduct of state officials. Mm-hmm. Like now for the police, we have what you call the IPOA. Mm-hmm. I think it's the Independent Police Oversight Authority, which handles the conduct and matters brought against police officers. So in that context, you can report to them. But again, it's still the same thing. We'll have delays. Remember the police, the people who are there who sits in these committees, one of them, it is a police representative.
So he'll tell the officer,
definitely,
kuna case hapa against you. And of course he'll know who is bringing the case against him. Yes. So I'm not even safe.
Yes. Still. Then we have the Kenya National Commission of Human Rights, KNCHR, I believe, which is also a gazetted institution, independent institution. But is it really effective though when it comes to such matters? You see, now that you've never heard of them, yet they are supposed to be safeguarding your rights. You get, yeah. So we still have a long way to go, manze.
Especially when it comes to witness protection, because it's something I've also been thinking about for the longest time.
Definitely.
I think on paper, it's like you said, it's so Cinderella, it's so beautiful, but in reality, these things go south really bad.
Yes.
The witnesses are always, there's something that always happens to survivors who bring up cases against people who have either power over them or power in general.
Yes. So, then you see now they have influence. They're able, just like you see, you cannot bring a whole like state official who runs a thing.
Yes. You can't say a state official sexually harassed or sexually assaulted you. It's not.
Like you remember, there's a certain politician who say that he just woke up and he did not remember the room that he slept in. Then he found himself in another woman's room and in another lodge. Then it's like, how did it happen? Then the woman said, like, somebody just got hold of me and raped me. But now when this woman raised that concern, because it was a senator of a certain Actually, he's a former senator and also a former CS of a certain department in the government.
Now the case ya kunywa
Yes,
maji.
kunywa maji. Jamaa alisema bana, mimi niliingia tu room, nilikuwa nimelewa, nikaingia room nikajipata niko bed na mwanamke. Like sikumbuki ni nini. Like what made you leave your room which you had booked and went for this other one?
Hey,
so bad. Yeah. The case ilienda maji, chini ya maji tu hivyo.
Cases with especially state officials zinakunywanga maji very fast. Hata polisi tu wanakuambia achana tu na hiyo.
Achana tu na hiyo. Then you have corruption.
Of course.
Playing a very huge part. Still have a long way to go with corruption. Yeah.
Let's talk about male survivors and especially LGBTQ, or let's talk about male survivors and LGBTQ cases.
All right.
Does Kenya have LGBTQ rights?
Okay. I don't know now how to put it, but on paper, no.
So if
impliedly, I've seen scenarios or rather case from the case laws where like NGO, like people from the LGBTQ community, they have been given the right to form their own association. So what does that denote?
They have some
rights. Yes, they have their rights, like freedom of assembly and what have you. But what's the main agenda of the
assembly?
So definitely you'll realize that Kenya in one or another ni wale wanapiga wakipuliza.
Yeah.
So they really hawana msimamo. Like the government haina msimamo.
So since we're talking about sexual violence, if somebody in the LGBT community experiences sexual violence,
yes,
can they bring up the cases in court?
That's also a problem. You see, like when you have also when you look at the Kenyan laws, we have this like section 162. It is a section of the penal code. Penal code is a section that penalizes any criminal acts. All right. When you look at it, it defines what we can cluster as acts of indecency. All right. Like a man cannot have sex with another man. Like a woman cannot have sex with another woman.
Cannot. They just is point blank.
Yes. Like those are crime. Why? Another ancestor.
Your ancestors. They have come today.
Like another crime is like crimes of indecency. Okay. A woman cannot have sex with another woman.
That's a crime.
That's a crime.
Okay.
Yes, because those are crimes against nature. They are indecent
acts. Yes.
Indecent acts. But the question is it that they are just indecent acts only if they are brought to public? What about within the private spheres?
Yes.
Like me, I take another man and put them in a room. It's a private space. I haven't disturbed anyone.
Yeah.
So why do you classify it as an indecent act?
And it's
mine. So again, the double-edged sword. Yeah. Where at one point you're classifying them as bad, another point when an act of rape happens to them, they're also human beings. But again, bringing them forth because of the criminalizing of their
sexual
preferences.
So what happens in such cases?
In such case, I think the best thing to do, maybe you can just use the loopholes that exist. If it classifies it as an indecent act, then bring it as an act of indecency. Like, yes.
He can't name it rape.
He can't name it rape.
Because rape has to be a man and a woman.
That's what the sexual offenses has clustered it. All right?
Yeah.
But nowadays, when you look at the sexual offenses, it depends with how you interpret the sections. Because when you look at the definition of rape, it just says it is the intentional or the unlawful act, all right, of committing sexual intercourse. But sexual intercourse, what is sexual intercourse?
Yes.
Between man and a woman.
Yes, that's what they're assuming.
That's what most people assume. But sexual intercourse generally could be man to man.
Yeah.
But does it really amount?
Yeah.
Because someone is not using an organ for the right purpose. So we have a big step. So you can just classify them as an indecent act.
LGBTQ. Now what about just generally male survivors? How do they go about it? Apart from the rape cases where it's a woman and a man, what happens in cases where fathers rape their sons? What happens in those sodomizing cases? What happens to them?
Sodomy still falls under an act of indecency. Yeah. So
can an LGBTQ member file under sodomy?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
That is the only channel they can approach, unless the government decides to incorporate it.
Okay.
First of all, classify the LGBTQ plus community and say, then you are good to go.
Okay.
Yes.
Where? Well, you
So
guys have
tuko
a
na
long way to
kazi,
wow,
tuko
mkona
na kazi. The
kazi.
government needs a lot to do. It has a lot
What
to do.
can the law do better to help, especially men? Because I think men have a different hill to climb when it comes to
True.
reporting and trial cases with our legal system. What can the law do to make it better?
Just to break the stigma by creating sensitization and awareness.
What is the stigma? Like, why is it like so hard for men to
Yeah.
believe that other men can be assaulted?
Yes, like you just go to the police and you report, man, like, yo, is this woman has just assaulted me sexually. Then you're like, aje, then like alikushika na mkono aka, like it was it.
They want to know
they want to know the
details
details,
to make
yet
fun of it.
yes, and they say it in public, like, hey, ngoja acha niite huyu akuja asikie. Gadhoni kuja usikie hii story.
Crazy.
Yeah, so
Crazy.
it's so sad, but again, it's just to create some awareness to the male. Yes, so when I think it's also a matter of educating the people who are handling this, like the police, the magistrates, and what have you. So just to break that form of perception.
Okay.
Like,
as a lawyer, how many rape or sexual violence cases towards men have you handled?
let me just say, to be honest, 2, because most of them haven't disclosed it yet.
Yeah.
That's the problem now. You see, a man will say like, hey, mimi niende tu niseme
We open up about all of this.
society itanichukuliaje. But I've handled 2 of them. Most of them have been in West Pokot. I handled 2 where now you see a woman, a man was actually it was a teenager, around 12 years old. All right, was because they live in a shanty in like a one single room, was placed in a compromising state. Now you remember I told you about the circumstantial evidence. Yes, the woman baths there. The woman brings alcohol
what
there.
What is the relationship with the woman?
The mother, actually the stepmother. Actually the stepmother. So if you ever thought that it's only about men, man, even we also have women who are doing these acts.
So she would shower in the same house. She'd constantly show nudity.
Yes, show nudity. Remember, this is a teenager. You bring alcohol in the house. This is a boy who is trying to identify. You see, he has been seeing the mother because the mother is a commercial sex worker. The mother brings people in the house out of arrangement. So he has to step out. But you remember, he's growing.
Yeah.
So when he sees this act, he's like, oh, so this thing is allowed, right? So not placing them in a right state of mind.
Yeah.
Yes. So when they finally come to their sense, like they feel quite traumatized, then you realize what happened. That's because I've been having sex
with my mother.
Yeah.
That's so unfortunate. I think to wrap up this, let's talk about reforms and justice pathways, because we can't just talk about the problem.
Yeah.
Not even talk about solutions or future solutions.
Definitely.
Are there any bills, reforms, or court decisions that are currently addressing these issues?
Yes. Like I've seen courts who are trying really to bring the LGBTQ clustering. All right. Offenses committed to them and acts of rape, how do they merge? So it's a concept that I've seen in most case laws. They're trying to conceptualize and come up with a way on how they will handle people from the community.
What about marital rape?
That's also another thing, marital rape. You cannot really classify marital rape because they have been silent. Because they believe that because through an act of marriage, consent was already built up. So anything that you made was between the spheres of marital. Because you see, like now bringing, like you have your right to, what do you call it? Conjugal rights.
Yes.
Right? Conjugal rights.
Thinking about it also.
The conjugal rights. Yeah. Now, when you look at conjugal rights, what do you mean by saying conjugal rights? It is a right to have sex, to be given sexual freedoms. So, sexual freedom, does rape now amount to denial of?
If I deny you,
or does it amount to a conjugal right?
So, if I deny conjugal right, does it give you basis for rape?
That's the question that now we should ask. So, we have a long way to go. So
there's nothing in the parliament. There's no bill.
We still have amendments, like the Sexual Offences Act. They're still amending it to include clusters of people, non-binary persons. What amounts to marital rape? Again, it's also a big agenda that is still in parliament. Then what else? Where do NGOs come in? All right. what do they need to do? What do paralegals need to do?
Yeah.
Should they be gazetted? Because most of the time, so you've realized that most of these NGOs now acts like courts.
Okay.
Like, enda ita huyo mzee akuje. Mzee, unajua tutakushtaki. Mama huyu amesema pole juu ya mtoto. Mnaweza negotiate. You know, this is a whole NGO doing that kind of stuff. So again, we need to find a way on how to classify these NGOs.
Yeah.
Yes. And also kangaroo courts.
Kangaroo
courts ni mbaya.
Why do they still exist?
Kangaroo courts, because people, because of a failed justice system,
Yeah.
the delays, the what have you.
So
people feel
just,
like, si tusota hapa chini, we nilete ng'ombe mbili, I get done with this.
So what needs to change to make justice truly
I think awareness.
accessible? Awareness.
Let us just
people
be,
don't know.
Yes, definitely. Let us just be aware with just greater awareness and sensitization of what rape is, the dignity. Like, just because I've chosen a style of dressing that does not give someone the laxity to, you know, assault, to assault someone sexually. You get the logic? Yeah, because there's a lot that needs to be done within the spheres. Yes.
I think personally, I have the biggest grudge with the justice system. Out of all the other systems, I think my biggest grudge is the justice
with the delays
system. Not just the delays. I think it's they've made it one, incredibly difficult to report.
Okay.
Two, they delay in trials.
True.
In cases. So the entire process, the reporting, the trial, the criminalization,
how it is handled,
every single thing allows for people to feel entitled that by the time hata nafungwa.
Yes, the delay, the
corruption.
Somebody has already given up on the justice system
completely, and that's where that's my biggest. That's why this whole series is called Justice Obscured, because like I said in the introduction, it's like justice is among us, but she doesn't stay long enough to make a home with us.
Oh, nice.
So we have concepts of justice, but it's never truly comes to be.
True.
So I think that's been a very enlightening conversation to know what the law actually says. I think our law is very pretty.
very
pretty. Very pretty. Wordy.
Very pampered.
Very pampered.
Very detailed. But the problem
implementation. In the implementation. That's where we're going next.
Yes. Then we have the problem of people choosing to interpret on how fits them in the situations. So that's also another problem.
All right.
Yeah. So
thank you so much, Spencer, for coming.
Thank you also as well.
We appreciate you, Akili, for taking the time to delve into such a difficult conversation and talk about the reality that it is and give us as raw as it is. Tu ya kusema hiyo pole LGBTQ hauna right hapo. Pole. Labda upitie njia nyingine huko nyuma ama ufanye sijui nini ama you have to go this way and this way. So in case you need Spencer is available.
Definitely.
He's available to be kama if you need a case handled, Spencer is
or maybe if you just need a reach out, I also offer free legal aid. So you can just hit me up in the inbox via my social media handles. Reach out, we find an arrangement, we speak out. So because,
what is your social media handle?
Instagram Spencer_Wana. Reach me out. I think I'm so much active in Instagram. So
Mwongee na Spencer. Let him talk you through the system so that it's not so scary. Hata zingine hata approaching the legal world could be so scary.
Very scary.
You don't even know what these words are. What anakwambia tu this act. What are we acting?
In concordance.
Umenipoteza mbaya.
Longo sana.
So thank you so much for listening. If you've made it all the way here, thank you so much. Leave us a like, comment, let us know what you think. If there are any questions that you still have that you'd like Spencer to address, Spencer is available to come back to the Grey Couch and answer those questions. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. I hope this has been enlightening. My name is Cecilia. I am your host of Justice Obscured.
Till then, adios.